All right, so we're gonna continue in our welding intro. Okay, so we started out how to set up our welding machines. We then went over how to read the electrodes, right? Because we were having some practice in the booth. So now we're just gonna go over another safety kind of protocol here, and that's welder's flash. So I'm sure some of you have experienced welder's flash, not on purpose, but probably by accident, right? Okay, so welder's flash is when you're exposed to that really bright UV light, okay? And that's produced from welding. So there can be kind of different ways how you're exposed to it. Like I said, whether it's by accident, you flip up your welding shield too early, or you don't have your shield on the right setting. Okay, but it's kind of like the flash burn itself is similar to a sunburn, but for your eyes, right? So anyone that hasn't experienced it, it's not the best feeling, but unfortunately, in practicing welding, it's more than likely going to happen once, if not more. Okay, so symptoms right away, you'll have a little bit of eye discomfort, probably followed by a headache, but everybody is going to experience it a little bit differently. Okay, so it's going to feel like you might have sand in your eyes. It's going to be real itchy, irritated. Try not itching your eyes, it's only going to make it worse. Okay, and sometimes if it's really bad, the same night when you try and go to sleep, it's going to be really bright when you close your eyes. Because that darkness that you were experiencing trying to sleeping, the brightness that you were exposed to earlier in the day, it's all going to come back. So that's when you'll notice you really had welder's flash, because when you're trying to fall asleep and it's going to be super bright. Okay, that's kind of the worst symptom, other than experience it right away, of course, when the weld is super bright initially. Okay, so for treatment, if it's not too bad, like let's say you just flip up your shield, somebody in the booth is welding beside you, maybe out of your peripheral vision, you kind of catch a little bit of the weld. Okay, it's not going to be that harmful long term. It's going to be something short term, and it's usually going to go away on its own. So sometimes if you get welder's flash, it might only last a few seconds, right? It's going to be really bright, you might even be a little bit dizzy, but eventually your eyes will correct itself, okay? But for extreme cases, you might have to get like a topical cream or antibiotic to treat it, depending how severe it is. So do you know what welding process is going on here? I know we've gone over a few. Does it look like stick, MIG? Maybe it's hard to tell, okay? But this one is MIG welding, all right? MIG welding might not be as bright as stick welding, but what's kind of one safety infraction you can see right off the hop for this welding?
No goggles or...
Yeah, no safety glasses. What else?
No welding mask.
No welding mask, right? It's not a very good example, okay? So that's what we're not going to practice in the booth, but he unfortunately is going to experience welder's flash, right? So let's not try and be like that person when we're welding in the booth. Okay, so how do we prevent welder's flash? All right, so a good way is to always check your welding shields. All right, everybody's been doing a really good job at that so far. So for stick welding, which is what we're focusing on in SMA, right, ideally you want a number 10. Okay, so number 10 is just the shade for the darkness of your shield. Okay, I wouldn't recommend going any lower than 9. Anything lower than 9 for welding, it gets a little bit too bright. And if you're sensitive to light still, you can do a little bit of trial in there. You can go all the way up to 12. Okay, for most people 12 is too dark, but there is the odd person that says, yeah, you know what, number 10 is still a little bit too light, so I'm going to turn it up to 12. That is really dark, but for some people it's more comforting on the eyes. Okay. And then you can see in this picture here, again, stick welding, right? Welding shield, insulated gloves. Would we all agree that person's a little bit more suited for stick welding, right? Okay. Any guess as to who's welding there? Bonus points who gets it right on the first try. Alex?
You.
Yeah, good guess. Alright, that's me out in the field. Okay, this is stick welding, right? What we've been practicing. Again, going back to our intro here, it's outside. It's there's a wind tunnel that goes through there. So stick welding is the best practice for that. Okay, but again, this is just an example for PPE, and on there, that is an auto darkening shield. That's what we've been using here. So that's usually a number 10 as well. Okay, so are there any questions on welder slash? I know it's kind of straightforward, but unfortunately it's something you are exposed to in welding. But pretty clear for the most part. Okay, gonna jump into our welding project. So I know a lot of you are running out of projects, so we are gonna start something new. What we're gonna be working on is gonna be testing layout and design, but ultimately it will all come together with our stick welding. Okay, so we're going to be fabricating a 6x6 steel picture frame. Okay, so on this project, you can get a little bit creative with the top of your base here. Okay, so what I ended up doing, I created this last week. I went with like a 3D image. Okay, so you can practice welding your name on the base if you want. I have seen some people practice already doing that, and it looks really well. You can plasma cut something in the back if you have a favorite logo or something, or you have free range on a 3D shape as well. Okay, I went with a little cottage feel, and this is something that you can ultimately take home with you as well once we're completed. Okay, so we'll go off to the parts list here. So the base of your steel frame is 1x1 tubing. Okay, that's what we unloaded last week. So there's lots of lengths of it, so don't be shy. And our base plate is going to be 1/8 thick. This is all mild steel. Okay, and again, same thing, creativity for your cover plate. I'm going to leave that up to you, but there are a few options and examples I can show you later. We're going to be using a combination square. Okay, for those of you that don't know what it is, I can go over with you later. But that will make sure that everything is square when we're designing our frame. You don't want it to be lopsided or anything like that. Okay, measure tape to lay out your 4 pieces of tubing, and a magnetic welding square. Okay, that's up to you. I find those help a lot. So that square will keep your angles at 90 degrees, which is going to come in really handy for your frame. Okay, steps for success. So you're going to have to figure out your lengths for your frame. Okay, so you know you want it to be 6x6. So 2 of them are automatically going to be 6 inches. You'll have to figure out the other 2 lengths to keep it all the same. Okay, like I said, lay out your material. I would recommend using a bandsaw. That's going to create your cleanest cut. I would stay away from plasma cutting, oxyacetylene torching, just because you have a lot of grinding involved. There's rooms for error. And angle grinder, you can use that, but I would like to see everyone use a bandsaw just because it creates the cleanest cuts. Okay, so again, I already touched base on it a little bit, but the magnetic square is going to help with keeping your corners at 90. Okay, so I know there are going to be errors. It's not going to be perfect. Mine's not perfect either, but we can use the tools that we have to try and make the assembly as easy as possible. Okay, so once you have your 4 pieces set up, then you're going to go ahead and tack weld each corner. Okay, don't weld out the corners fully. By putting too much heat in one corner, it will warp and distort your piece. Okay, so do a little bit of tack welding. Go back and check, make sure that it's still square, everything is up to code for your measurements, and then you can go ahead and weld out your frame entirely. Okay, so it's not too bad. Just keep it square, tack it up once you're happy, and you can move on. Okay, is everybody on track so far? It's not too bad, right? Just get your frame, and then we'll move on to the base plate. Okay, so your frame ideally is going to be 6 by 6. You can see here I cut my plate a little bit smaller. Okay, I took off about a 1/4 inch, but depending on what weld size you're going to ultimately have, you can adjust it accordingly. But I would like to see, kind of like a clean finish here, where your weld is fusing to your plate and also your frame, right? So just keep that in mind, because if you end up cutting it size for size, your welds are going to be overhanging the frame. Okay, we like to keep it nice, clean, tidy as possible. Okay, and then once you have your plate on, you're going to add your 3D shape to it. Okay, and that's if you decide to go the 3D route. If you want to plasma cut something first, I recommend plasma cutting it first before you cut your plate, right? Because then it leaves a lot less room for any errors. Okay, and once you have your 2D cut out, it'll be very similar to this. You can still weld the outside. Okay, so if you want more practice for welding, feel free, you can weld out your plate entirely. I only welded parts of it out there, and again, add more weld if you like, just make sure that the plate stays down. And yeah, so that's kind of the cleanest look you can go for your frame and base plate. Okay, and you can see here, once you are welding out your frame, you're going to be left with these pockets. Okay, this kind of makes it look unfinished. So to dress it up, I want to see everybody try capping your ends. Okay, so you're going to have to measure your inside diameter of the square tubing. Okay, we can go over that together later. And what you're going to do is you're going to weld out these little corners. Okay, it's going to be tedious, but in the end, once you have it all welded out, you're going to grind it flush, and that's going to look a lot cleaner, right? So I think we can all agree that your frame will look a lot cleaner than before, right? It's just kind of more of a finished product, and that's something that I would like to see everybody attempt. Okay, so there is an example of the finished product up there. Okay, so like I said, grind your ends, keep it clean. You can add as much weld as you want to your base plate to the frame. But I just have a few tacks because I know the plate itself is going to be held down. Okay, again, I went for a cottage feel, and then I added a B for my last initial, just to keep it personal. And you are welcome to paint your project once you're done. Okay, I'll provide a few different colors for you. So if that is something you want to do, or you can kind of leave it like a raw material look. There's nothing wrong with that. It just all depends what feel you want to go for. Okay, and online for D2L, I already uploaded the slideshow, so you can refer to it if you have to. There's also a rubric, so now you kind of have a guideline as to what I'll be looking for. I already explained most of it, but again, try to keep your frame square. I'd like to see you get creative, right? You can add 2D, 3D, whatever you're after, and I'll be checking for your welds. Okay, I'd like to see some clean welds. At least try your best. We can go over it together once you're in the booth. If you still need a hand, that's no problem. And again, we're gonna try to stick to small welding. Okay, so I know the material is thin, so MIG welding might seem easier, but I would like to try everybody attempt stick welding for this project. Okay, and again, you can refer to the rubric online. I know you're all going to be aiming for 4s on this, so feel free to look at that. If you have any questions, we can go over the rubric together. But is there any questions for the project, or are you all feeling pretty confident? Okay, it's pretty straightforward for the most point, all straight cuts. The welding isn't too bad, and this is a project you can take home with you. I know you'll all be proud of it once you're done, something you can take away from manufacturing. And yeah, it's gonna be a good project. So we'll be doing that for the next few weeks. Mr. Rester will be going over his project tomorrow. Okay, so that'll kind of split it up. So not everybody is kind of attacking the welding booths at once. So we'll try and organize that as best as we can. Yeah, what's up? It's not due for 3 weeks. Okay, so we have lots of time to work on it. Like I said, Mr. Rester will be implementing a new project, so we'll be going back and forth, just so there's not as much commotion in the welding area. Okay, was everyone good? Feel confident? Okay, we can start drafting what you want to do for your design, and followed by that, I know you're all super excited. There's going to be a little intro to welding quiz we will go over later today as well. Okay, sounds good? Perfect. Thank you. Oh, you don't have to.